Zira had always been different from the others in her village. While most of her peers followed the predictable rhythm of their daily lives, tending to crops that glowed softly under the twin suns or weaving fabrics infused with shimmering threads, she spent her days gazing at the sky. Her skin, which sparkled faintly like liquid crystal, seemed to mirror the stars above, making her stand out even more among her people. But it wasn't just her appearance that set her apart. It was her insatiable curiosity. On her planet, known as Luminara, there were strict rules about staying within the boundaries of safety. Elders often warned against venturing too far into the wilderness, especially near the forbidden canyons. These jagged cliffs, carved by ancient winds and glowing faintly with bioluminescent moss, were said to hold dangers beyond comprehension. Yet for Zira, they represented something else entirely, a mystery waiting to be unraveled. One evening, after finishing her chores, Zira decided to take a risk. She slipped away from her family's home, careful not to make any noise as she tiptoed past her sleeping parents. Her heart pounded with excitement and fear as she made her way toward the edge of the village. Beyond the last row of glowing trees lay the vast expanse of the canyon, its eerie beauty calling to her like a whispered promise. The air grew cooler as she approached the cliffs, the ground beneath her feet shifting from soft soil to rough stone. Bioluminescent plants cast strange shadows on the walls of the canyon, creating patterns that danced in the dim light. Zira paused for a moment, taking in the sight. It felt otherworldly, almost magical. She couldn't help but smile. But then, something caught her eye, a faint glow emanating from a cluster of rocks deeper inside the canyon. At first, she thought it might be another patch of moss, but as she moved closer, she realized it was something entirely different. Half buried in the dirt was an object unlike anything she'd ever seen before. It pulsed gently, emitting a warm, golden light that shifted between shades of blue and green. Intricate patterns etched onto its surface shimmered faintly, as if alive. Zira crouched down, her breath quickening. "What is this strange thing?" she murmured aloud, reaching out hesitantly with one hand. The moment her fingers brushed against the surface, the object hummed softly, vibrating slightly in response. Startled, she pulled her hand back, her wide eyes fixed on the mysterious artifact. Her mind raced with questions. Where did it come from? Was it natural, or had someone, or something, left it here? Most importantly, what did it do? The elders' warnings echoed in her mind. Stay away from gifts from the stars. They'd bring danger. But Zira couldn't ignore the pull of curiosity tugging at her heart. Whatever this was, it didn't seem dangerous. At least, not yet. She glanced around nervously, half expecting someone to appear and scold her for being so reckless. But the canyon remained silent except for the occasional rustle of leaves carried by the wind. Gathering her courage, Zira picked up the object carefully. It was heavier than she expected, cool to the touch despite its radiant glow. As she held it, the pulsing light grew steadier, almost as if it recognized her presence. "What are you?" she whispered again, turning the object over in her hands. Its surface was smooth yet textured, like nothing she'd encountered before. She noticed small indentations along one side, resembling buttons or switches. Hesitant but unable to resist, she pressed one of them. Instantly, the object lit up brighter, casting a soft halo around her. A series of faint sounds emanated from it, low tones that reminded her of the wind chimes her mother used to hang outside their home. But these weren't random noises. They formed a pattern, almost like a language. Zira tilted her head, listening intently. Could it be trying to communicate? For hours, she sat there, studying the object and experimenting with its various features. Each time she touched a new part of it, something changed. The colors shifted, the sounds altered, and once, a beam of light shot upward, illuminating the entire canyon in a dazzling display. By the time the first rays of dawn began creeping over the horizon, Zira knew she couldn't leave it behind. This strange thing was extraordinary, and she needed to understand it. With great care, she wrapped the object in a piece of fabric torn from her satchel and tucked it securely under her arm. As she climbed back up the rocky path toward her village, her thoughts swirled with possibilities. What secrets did this object hold? And where had it truly come from? The next morning, Zira woke up earlier than usual, her mind still buzzing with thoughts of the mysterious object she had found. She couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than just a random piece of debris. It felt alive, almost as if it were waiting for her to unlock its secrets. Carefully, she slipped out of bed and tiptoed to the corner of her room where she had hidden it beneath a pile of woven blankets. The faint glow emanating from beneath the fabric reassured her. Whatever it was, it hadn't stopped working overnight. Zira knew she couldn't keep it in her home for long. If her parents discovered it, they would surely confiscate it and report it to the village elders. That thought made her stomach churn. Her people weren't exactly welcoming when it came to unknown things, especially those that came from beyond their planet. They preferred safety over curiosity, tradition over exploration. But Zira wasn't ready to give up on this strange discovery. Not yet. She decided to take the object to her secret den, a small hollow beneath a towering bioluminescent tree at the edge of the village. It was a place she had claimed years ago, a sanctuary where she could think freely without fear of being judged. Gathering her courage, she wrapped the artifact securely in the same fabric she had used the night before and tucked it under her arm. Then, keeping an eye out for prying eyes, she slipped out of the house and headed toward the forest. When she reached her den, she placed the object carefully on the ground and knelt beside it. The golden light pulsed softly, almost invitingly, as if encouraging her to continue exploring. Zira took a deep breath and began examining it again, this time with greater focus. She noticed tiny symbols etched into its surface, patterns that seemed familiar somehow, though she couldn't quite place them. Perhaps they were numbers, or maybe letters from some alien language. Her fingers traced the indentation she had pressed the previous night, triggering another soft hum. This time, however, something new happened. A small section of the object slid open, revealing a compartment filled with glowing crystals arranged in a circular pattern. Zira's eyes widened in awe. What were these? Were they power sources? Decorations? Something else entirely? Eager to learn more, she rummaged through her satchel and pulled out a few tools she had borrowed from her father's workshop. He was a skilled craftsman who often repaired farming equipment, so his tools were sturdy and precise. Using a thin metal probe, Zira gently tapped one of the crystals. To her surprise, the entire object vibrated slightly, and a holographic image flickered to life above it. At first, the image was blurry, but as Zira adjusted her position, it sharpened into focus. It showed a swirling mass of stars, planets, and colorful nebulae, a map of some sort. In the center of the display floated a single symbol, a spiral surrounded by dots. Zira tilted her head, studying it intently. Could this be a representation of her own galaxy, or perhaps a completely different one? As she stared at the map, more images appeared, each one accompanied by faint sounds that resembled speech. At first, the noises were chaotic, overlapping in ways that made no sense. But as Zira listened closely, she began to pick out patterns, repeating tones, pauses, and shifts in pitch. It dawned on her that these might be words, phrases even. Someone, or something, was trying to communicate. Excited by this realization, Zira started mimicking the sounds herself. She repeated the tones softly, experimenting with different pitches until she matched the rhythm. To her astonishment, the object responded. Its lights brightened momentarily, and the holographic display shifted, showing a new set of symbols. Encouraged, Zira continued practicing, gradually piecing together fragments of what she hoped was a message. Over the next few days, Zira spent every spare moment in her den, pouring all her energy into deciphering the object. She brought scraps of food and water with her, unwilling to leave until she understood more. Slowly but surely, she began making progress. By repeating certain sequences of sounds, she triggered specific responses from the object. Sometimes it displayed maps. Other times, it showed images of creatures unlike anything she had ever seen. Beings with elongated limbs, shimmering wings, or translucent bodies. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over the forest, Zira achieved a breakthrough. After hours of trial and error, she managed to produce a sequence of tones that caused the object to emit a clear melodic chime. A hologram of a creature appeared, floating above the device. It had large, expressive eyes and a kind smile. Though it didn't speak in words Zira could understand, its gestures and the gentle tone of its voice conveyed warmth and friendliness. Tears welled up in Zira's eyes. For the first time, she realized she wasn't alone in her curiosity. Whoever, or whatever, had created this object shared her desire to connect, to explore, to learn. And now, thanks to her persistence, she had taken the first step toward bridging the gap between her world and theirs. But excitement quickly gave way to apprehension. What did this mean for her? Was she ready to interact with beings from another part of the universe? And what would happen if anyone found out about her experiments? The question swirled in her mind, leaving her both exhilarated and uneasy. Still, Zira couldn't deny the thrill coursing through her veins. She had uncovered something extraordinary, something that challenged everything she thought she knew about her planet and the cosmos beyond. For better or worse, her life would never be the same again. Zira's heart raced as she stared at the holographic image hovering above the mysterious object. The being before her, tall, slender, and radiating an aura of calm wisdom, seemed to be watching her intently, its large eyes shimmering with intelligence. Though it didn't speak in words she could understand, its melodic tones and graceful gestures conveyed a sense of patience and kindness. Zira felt a mix of wonder and nervousness bubbling inside her. This was no ordinary discovery. This was contact, real, tangible communication with someone from beyond her world. For hours, Zira practiced mimicking the sounds and patterns the creature emitted. Each time she got closer to matching them, the hologram responded more clearly, its movements becoming less mechanical and more fluid. It was as if the being were encouraging her, guiding her step by step. Over time, she began to notice subtle changes in the way it communicated. Its gestures grew more expressive, and its tone shifted depending on whether Zira made progress or stumbled. She realized that this wasn't just a one-sided interaction, it was a dialogue. One evening, after days of relentless effort, something remarkable happened. As Zira repeated a particularly complex sequence of tones, the hologram paused for a moment, then spoke again. But this time, its voice sounded different. Instead of the usual melodic hums, it produced a series of rhythmic clicks and whistles, followed by a soft vibration. Suddenly, the object projected a new holographic display, a series of symbols accompanied by faint outlines of planets and stars. Zira leaned forward, her breath catching in her throat. Could these symbols represent language? Was the being trying to teach her how to communicate properly? Determined not to miss a single detail, she studied the symbols carefully, memorizing their shapes and positions. Then, using one of the tools from her father's workshop, she sketched them onto a piece of parchment she had scavenged from her mother's storage chest. As the nights passed, Zira's understanding deepened. Through trial and error, she pieced together fragments of meaning. Some symbols referred to objects, like star or planet, while others described actions or concepts. One symbol, in particular, stood out, a spiral surrounded by dots, identical to the one she had seen earlier. After much experimentation, she deduced that it represented her own galaxy. Her excitement soared. If she could learn enough, perhaps she could ask questions and receive answers. Finally, one night, Zira mustered the courage to attempt real communication. Taking a deep breath, she activated the object and waited for the hologram to appear. When the being materialized once more, she hesitated for only a moment before speaking. Using the sounds and tones she had practiced tirelessly, she formed a simple sentence. "Who are you?" The hologram tilted its head slightly, as if considering her question. Then, in response, it emitted a series of tones that translated into a phrase she understood. "We are Lumen." Zira's eyes widened. So they had a name. Emboldened, she tried another question. "Where do you come from?" This time, the hologram gestured toward the map displayed above the object. A bright light pulsed over a distant cluster of stars far beyond her galaxy. Zira's mind reeled. These beings traveled across unimaginable distances, exploring worlds she could barely dream of. They weren't just visitors. They were explorers, seekers of knowledge like herself. Encouraged by their willingness to share information, Zira asked more questions. She learned that the Lumen were peaceful travelers who sought to understand the universe and its countless civilizations. Their ships roamed the cosmos, mapping stars, studying ecosystems, and occasionally making contact with intelligent species. However, they approached such encounters cautiously, ensuring that their presence wouldn't disrupt the natural order of a planet or its inhabitants. When Zira explained where she came from, the glowing forests of Luminara, the twin suns, the bioluminescent creatures, the hologram seemed intrigued. It responded with a series of tones that roughly translated to, "Your world is beautiful. We have observed it from afar, but have not yet made contact." Zira frowned at this revelation. "Why not?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. The hologram hesitated briefly before responding. "Some worlds are fragile. Contact must be handled carefully." Zira nodded slowly, understanding the weight of their words. Her people valued tradition and stability above all else. Introducing advanced technology or ideas from beyond their planet might cause chaos, or worse, fear. But there was one question burning in Zira's mind, one she couldn't ignore any longer. Summoning her courage, she asked, "Can I meet you? Can I see your ship?" The hologram paused, its expression unreadable. For a moment, Zira feared she had overstepped, pushing too far too soon. But then, the being emitted a soothing tone and replied, "If you wish to join us, we will guide you." Her pulse quickened. Join them? Leave her home? The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. She thought about her family, her village, her responsibilities. Yet she also thought about the endless possibilities, the chance to explore the stars, to learn things no one on Luminara had ever imagined. Could she really turn away from such an opportunity? Before she could dwell on the decision too long, the hologram added, "Prepare yourself. We will send a signal when the time is right." With that, the projection faded, leaving Zira alone with her thoughts. Over the next few days, Zira struggled to focus on anything else. Part of her wanted to tell someone, her best friend Lyko, maybe even her parents, but she knew she couldn't risk it. Her people would never understand. To them, venturing beyond their planet was reckless, dangerous even. No, this was something she had to do alone. Still, doubt lingered. What if she failed? What if the Lumen changed their minds? And what about her family? Would they forgive her for leaving without saying goodbye? These questions haunted her as she packed a small bag with essentials, food, water, and the tools she had used to study the object. She included the sketches of the symbols she had drawn, hoping they might prove useful later. On the fourth night after her conversation with the Lumen hologram, the object hummed softly, waking Zira from a restless sleep. She sat up quickly, her heart pounding. A soft glow emanated from its surface, pulsing in a steady rhythm. Without hesitation, she grabbed her bag and slipped silently out of her den. The forest around her was eerily quiet, as if holding its breath. Guided by the object's glow, Zira made her way toward a secluded clearing she had discovered years ago. As she stepped into the open space, the hum grew louder, vibrating through the ground beneath her feet. Suddenly, the air shimmered, and a beam of light descended from the sky, enveloping her in warmth. Above her, a massive ship materialized, its sleek design reflecting the light of the twin moons. Zira's breath caught in her throat. This was it, the moment she had dreamed of. But as the beam lifted her off the ground, carrying her upward, she couldn't help but glance back at her planet one last time. Her heart ached with longing, but also with hope. Whatever lay ahead, she knew she was ready. Zira's ascent into the Lumen ship felt like stepping into a dream. The beam of light carried her upward with effortless grace, and as she entered the vessel, she was greeted by an environment unlike anything she had ever imagined. The interior walls shimmered faintly, not with solid metal or stone, but with what appeared to be living energy. Soft hues of blue and green pulsed gently, creating an atmosphere of calm and wonder. Strange symbols floated in midair, glowing faintly as if waiting for interaction. Everything around her seemed alive, humming with purpose. A group of beings approached her, their forms tall and elegant, much like the hologram she had communicated with earlier. They moved with fluidity, their translucent robes flowing behind them, as though caught in an invisible breeze. One of them stepped forward, a figure with luminous eyes that seemed to hold galaxies within them. Zira recognized this being instantly. It was the same one who had guided her through those first tentative steps of communication. "Welcome, Zira," the being said, its voice resonating softly in her mind rather than through her ears. She realized it wasn't speaking in words at all. It was communicating directly with her thoughts, bypassing language entirely. "You have shown great courage and curiosity." Zira swallowed hard, trying to steady herself. Despite the warmth radiating from the lumen, she couldn't shake the feeling of being completely out of her depth. Her heart raced as she looked around at the advanced technology surrounding her. Every fiber of her being screamed that she didn't belong here. But at the same time, she felt an undeniable connection to these beings and their mission. "I thank you," Zira replied hesitantly, stumbling over the unfamiliar weight of gratitude in such an extraordinary situation. "I want to learn, to understand." The Lumen leader nodded approvingly. "Your desire to explore aligns with our own. We are travelers, seekers of knowledge. And now, so are you." Before Zira could respond further, another member of the crew gestured toward a nearby console. A holographic display sprang to life, showing images of distant planets, swirling nebulae, and alien creatures unlike anything she had ever seen. Some were beautiful, others strange, and a few even unsettling. But all were fascinating. Each image came with snippets of information, delivered telepathically into her mind. Atmospheric conditions, ecosystems, histories, and cultures. "This is just a glimpse of what lies beyond your world," the leader explained. "There is much to discover, and we invite you to join us on this journey." Zira's excitement grew, but so did her unease. She thought about her family back on Luminara, oblivious to where she was or what she was doing. Guilt gnawed at her. Leaving without saying goodbye felt wrong. Yet she knew returning would mean abandoning this incredible opportunity. For now, she pushed those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the wonders unfolding before her. Meanwhile, back on Luminara, life continued as usual, or so it seemed. Zira's absence hadn't gone unnoticed. Her parents had searched frantically when they discovered her bed empty and her belongings missing. Panic spread quickly through the village as whispers of her disappearance reached the elders. Rumors swirled about the forbidden canyons and the dangers lurking there. Had Zira ventured too far? Was she lost? Or worse, her best friend, Lyko, refused to believe the worst. He knew Zira better than anyone else. While others speculated about accidents or predators, Lyko suspected something different. He remembered how often she talked about the stars, how restless she seemed whenever someone mentioned boundaries or rules. Something told him Zira hadn't simply wandered off. She had chosen to leave. Determined to find answers, Lyko snuck away during the night, heading straight for Zira's secret den beneath the bioluminescent tree. When he arrived, he found evidence of her experiments, sketches of strange symbols, tools scattered across the ground, and faint traces of glowing residue left behind by the mysterious object. His suspicions deepened. Whatever had happened to Zira, it wasn't ordinary. Liko debated whether to tell the elders what he'd found. On one hand, they might dismiss his discovery as nonsense. On the other, they could use it as proof that Zira had broken tradition, bringing shame upon her family. Torn between loyalty to his friend and fear of consequences, Liko decided to keep quiet, for now. Instead, he vowed to watch and wait. If Zira needed help, he wanted to be ready. Back aboard the Lumen ship, Zira began her crash course in interstellar travel. Under the guidance of the crew, she learned how to navigate star charts, interpret data streams, and interact with the ship's systems. At first, everything felt overwhelming. The sheer scale of the universe dwarfed her understanding, but the Lumen were patient teachers. They encouraged her questions and celebrated her progress, no matter how small. One day, while practicing navigation, Zira stumbled upon a troubling piece of information. The Lumen weren't the only travelers in the cosmos. Other species existed, some friendly, others hostile. Among them was a faction known as the Krill, notorious for their aggressive expansionist tendencies. They viewed exploration as trespassing and responded to outsiders with hostility. When Zira asked why the Lumen didn't avoid conflict altogether, Captain Vela, a wise elder among the crew, explained that retreat wasn't always an option. To explore is to take risks, Vela said gently. But we do not seek confrontation. Our goal is peace, not war. Despite these reassurances, Zira couldn't shake the sense of danger looming on the horizon. She wondered if leaving her home had been reckless, not just for herself, but for her people. What if the Krill discovered Luminara because of her actions? Would she bring harm to those she loved? Her fears intensified when the ship received an unexpected alert. Sensors detected multiple vessels approaching rapidly, ships bearing markings consistent with the Krill fleet. The crew sprang into action, preparing defensive measures while attempting to establish communication. Zira watched anxiously as tension filled the air. When the Krill finally made contact, their tone was hostile. Their leader demanded to know why the Lumen were trespassing in their territory. Captain Vela tried to explain their peaceful intentions, but the Krill refused to listen. Within moments, the situation escalated, and the Lumen ship found itself surrounded. Zira's heart sank. This was exactly what she had feared. Conflict brought on by exploration. But as the standoff continued, she noticed something odd. The Krill's aggression seemed fueled less by anger and more by fear. Perhaps they saw the Lumen, and by extension, Zira, as threats to their way of life. Taking a deep breath, Zira stepped forward. "Let me try," she whispered to Vela. Though hesitant, the captain nodded, trusting her judgment. Using the skills she had developed during her time aboard the ship, Zira initiated communication with the Krill. At first, her attempts were met with silence or outright hostility. But slowly, patiently, she mimicked their language patterns, mirroring their tones and gestures. It was a gamble, but it worked. The Krill leader paused, seemingly surprised by her effort. "We mean no harm," Zira transmitted, her message clear despite the barriers between them. "We seek only understanding." For a long moment, there was no response. Then, unexpectedly, the Krill ships withdrew, disappearing into the void. The crisis had been averted, but barely. The encounter with the Krill left a profound impact on Zira. For days after the standoff, she replayed the events in her mind, analyzing every detail. She had faced fear, not just from the Krill, but within herself, and emerged stronger for it. Her decision to step forward and communicate directly with the hostile faction had been risky, but it had also proven that curiosity and bravery could overcome even the deepest divides. As the Lumen ship continued its journey through the cosmos, Zira threw herself into learning everything she could about navigation, diplomacy, and science. The crew treated her like one of their own, patiently guiding her as she mastered new skills. At first, some of the tasks seemed impossible, calculating hyperspace jumps, interpreting complex data streams, or deciphering alien languages. But with each success, Her confidence grew. Slowly, she began earning their trust. One of her earliest assignments was assisting in mapping uncharted regions of space. Using advanced sensors, the Lumen charted stars, planets, and anomalies, creating detailed records for future explorers. Zira marveled at the sheer vastness of the universe. Every system they passed revealed something new. A planet covered entirely in crystalline forests, a moon with oceans of liquid light, or a star surrounded by rings of shimmering dust. Each discovery filled her with awe, reminding her why she had chosen this path. But not all missions were peaceful. During one expedition, the ship approached a nebula known for its volatile energy fields. As they navigated deeper, alarms blared. A massive asteroid field blocked their way, its rocks tumbling chaotically due to gravitational disturbances. Captain Vela ordered the crew to prepare emergency protocols, while Zira worked alongside senior navigators to plot a safe course. Zira's role was small but critical. She monitored sensor readings, identifying stable pathways through the chaos. Her hands trembled as she relayed coordinates to the helm, knowing that any mistake could mean disaster. Yet, despite her nerves, she remained focused, drawing strength from the lessons she'd learned aboard the ship. When they finally emerged on the other side, the entire crew erupted in cheers. Vela placed a hand on Zira's shoulder, her glowing eyes reflecting pride. "You've done well," the captain said softly. "This is only the beginning." Despite her growing confidence, doubts lingered in Zira's mind. Nights spent staring out at the endless expanse of stars often brought moments of introspection. She thought about her family, her village, and the life she had left behind. Had they forgiven her? Did they even know where she was? Sometimes, guilt weighed heavily on her heart. She wondered if she had abandoned her roots too easily, trading tradition for adventure without fully considering the cost. Her musings were interrupted one evening when the ship received a distress signal. The transmission came from a distant planet, its language fragmented and distorted. The Lumen crew quickly determined the source, a small colony struggling to survive after a catastrophic environmental collapse. Their crops were failing, their water supplies dwindling, and their technology insufficient to reverse the damage. Captain Vela called a meeting to discuss whether they should intervene. While the Lumen prided themselves on helping others, they also adhered to strict guidelines about interfering in Planetar. Zira's instincts screamed at her to leave, but curiosity drove her forward. She approached a central console, its surface pulsing faintly with residual energy. Against the warnings of her teammates, she reached out and touched it. Instantly, the room came alive. Lights flickered on, machinery whirred to life, and holographic displays erupted around them. But instead of revealing answers, the activation triggered a distressing response. The ship began emitting a high-pitched screech, vibrating violently, as if fighting against the black hole's pull. "Zira, we need to go, now," one of her teammates shouted, grabbing her arm. But Zira hesitated. Amidst the chaos, she noticed a pattern forming in the holograms, a sequence of symbols similar to those she had studied aboard the Lumen ship. Realizing this might be key to understanding the ship's purpose, she quickly sketched the sequence onto a datapad before being dragged back to their shuttle. Moments later, the derelict vessel succumbed to the black hole's gravity, disappearing into the void. Back on the Lumen ship, Zira pored over the data she had collected. With the help of the crew's linguists and engineers, she deciphered fragments of the alien language, piecing together a chilling story. The ship had belonged to a long-lost civilization, one that had achieved incredible technological advancements, but at a cost. Their pursuit of power had led to catastrophic consequences, tearing apart their own world and leaving their survivors adrift among the stars. The message embedded in the ship's systems served as both a warning and a plea. "Do not repeat our mistakes." The discovery left Zira shaken. It was a stark reminder of the delicate balance between progress and destruction. She couldn't help but think of her own people, whose traditions prioritized harmony with nature. Had they been right all along? Or was there a middle ground, a way to embrace knowledge without losing sight of what truly mattered. Her reflections were interrupted when the ship received another urgent transmission. This time, it came from a nearby planet inhabited by a species known as the Valeth, beings renowned for their artistic prowess and intricate social structures. The Valeth had requested assistance in resolving a crisis threatening their culture. Intrigued, Zira joined the diplomatic team sent to investigate. Upon arriving, they learned that the Valeth were divided over the introduction of foreign technologies. While some embraced the innovations as tools for growth, others feared they would erode their traditions and identity. Tensions had escalated into conflict, with factions clashing openly in the streets. The situation reminded Zira painfully of her own struggles. The tension between curiosity and conformity, between exploration and preservation. Determined to help, Zira immersed herself in the Valeth's world, observing their customs and listening to their concerns. She noticed parallels between their dilemma and her own journey. Like her, many young Valeth yearned for change, while their elders clung to the past. Through patient dialogue, Zira proposed a compromise, integrating new technologies gradually, ensuring they complemented rather than replaced existing practices. Her suggestions sparked heated debate, but eventually gained traction. By working closely with both sides, Zira helped broker an agreement that allowed innovation to coexist with tradition. When the crisis subsided, the Valeth expressed their gratitude, presenting her with a gift, a delicate crystal sculpture depicting two intertwined figures, symbolizing unity and balance. Despite her successes, Zira couldn't escape the nagging feeling that she was drifting further from her roots. Each mission took her farther from Luminara, introducing her to civilizations vastly different from her own. While she cherished the friendships she formed and the lessons she learned, she often wondered if she still belonged anywhere. Was she too alien now to return home? Too inexperienced to fully integrate into the Lumen crew? Her doubts resurfaced during a particularly perilous mission. The ship encountered a rogue asteroid field, its rocks laced with volatile minerals. Navigating through required pinpoint accuracy, and Zira played a crucial role in plotting their course. Yet midway through the operation, a miscalculation caused a minor collision, damaging part of the hull. Though no one was injured, the incident shook her confidence. Captain Vela noticed Zira's distress and pulled her aside after repairs were completed. "Mistakes are inevitable," she said gently. "What matters is how we respond to them. You've grown so much since joining us. Don't let fear hold you back." Vela's words resonated deeply. Zira realized that perfection wasn't the goal. Growth was. Every challenge, every failure, brought her closer to becoming the person she wanted to be. Not just an explorer, but a bridge builder, someone who could connect disparate worlds. As the months passed, Zira's role aboard the ship expanded. She became a trusted navigator, a skilled diplomat, and a valued member of the crew. Her contributions earned her respect, not just from the Lumen but from the countless civilizations they encountered. Yet, despite her achievements, her thoughts often drifted back to Luminara. She dreamed of returning someday, not as a runaway child, but as a representative of the stars. She envisioned sharing her discoveries with her people, showing them that curiosity didn't have to mean abandoning tradition. Perhaps, she thought, she could inspire them to look beyond their boundaries while honoring their heritage. Years had passed since Zira first stepped aboard the Lumen ship, leaving behind her home and everything she had ever known. In that time, she had grown from a curious young girl into a seasoned explorer, respected by her crewmates and admired by those whose lives she touched. The universe had become her classroom, teaching her lessons about courage, empathy, and balance. Yet, despite all she had accomplished, one question lingered in her mind. Could she ever return to Luminara? The idea of going back was daunting. Her people valued tradition above all else, and her departure had likely been seen as an act of rebellion. Still, Zira couldn't ignore the longing in her heart, the desire to reconnect with her family, to share the wonder she had witnessed with those who had shaped her earliest dreams. She decided it was time to face her past, no matter how uncertain the outcome might be. With Captain Vela's blessing, Zira requested leave to visit Luminera. The Lumen agreed to assist her discreetly, ensuring their presence remained undetected to avoid alarming her people. As the ship approached her planet, Zira gazed out at the familiar glow of bioluminescent forests and the soft shimmer of twin suns reflecting off crystalline lakes. A wave of nostalgia washed over her, mingled with nervous anticipation. What would her family think? Would they even recognize her? The moment she set foot on Luminara, Zira felt both comforted and alienated. The air smelled the same, earthy and sweet, and the hum of glowing plants surrounded her like a lullaby. But the villagers now seemed so distant, their routines unchanged while she had transformed completely. Disguising herself under a hooded cloak to avoid drawing attention, she made her way toward her childhood home. Her parents were sitting outside when she arrived, their faces lined with years of worry and loss. They looked older, wearier, but still unmistakably familiar. Zira hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward, lowering her hood. Her mother gasped, clutching her chest, while her father rose abruptly, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Zira," her mother whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "Is it really you?" "It's me," Zira replied softly, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry I left without saying goodbye." Her parents embraced her tightly, their emotions spilling over in sobs and murmured apologies. For a long while, they simply held each other, letting the years of separation melt away. When the initial shock subsided, Zira explained everything. The mysterious object she had found, her journey with the Lumen, and the incredible discoveries she had made. At first, her parents struggled to comprehend the scope of her adventures, but as she described distant worlds and alien civilizations, their expressions shifted from confusion to wonder. "You've changed so much," her father said finally, his tone a mix of pride and sadness. "We thought we'd lost you forever." "I didn't mean to hurt you," Zira admitted. I needed to see what was out there. And now, I want to share it with you, with everyone." Over the next few days, Zira cautiously began introducing her ideas to the village elders. She knew convincing them wouldn't be easy. They were deeply skeptical of anything unfamiliar, viewing it as a threat to their way of life. But Zira approached the task with patience and respect, using stories and sketches to illustrate the beauty and diversity of the cosmos. She emphasized the importance of balance, showing how exploration could coexist with tradition. At first, the elders resisted, dismissing her tales as fanciful nonsense. However, when Zira demonstrated practical applications of Lumen technology, such as methods for purifying water or enhancing crop yields, they began to take notice. Slowly, their skepticism gave way to curiosity. Some even started asking questions, eager to learn more about the stars and the possibilities they represented. Lyko, her childhood friend, played a crucial role in bridging the gap between Zira and the villagers. Having always shared her sense of wonder, he became her advocate, helping her explain complex concepts in terms the others could understand. Together, they organized small gatherings where Zira showcased artifacts and shared insights from her travels. These meetings sparked lively discussions, igniting a newfound interest in the world beyond Luminera. As weeks turned into months, Zira worked tirelessly to foster understanding between her people and the wider galaxy. With the Lumen's support, she established a cultural exchange program, inviting scholars and ambassadors from other civilizations to visit Luminera. In turn, select members of her village traveled aboard the Lumen ship, experiencing firsthand the marvels of interstellar exploration. These exchanges enriched both parties, fostering mutual respect and cooperation. For Zira, this marked the fulfillment of a lifelong dream. She had once feared being torn between two worlds, unable to fully belong to either. Now she realized she didn't have to choose. By embracing her dual identity, as a Luminaran and a traveler among the stars, she had found a way to unite them. Her efforts weren't without challenges. There were moments of resistance, misunderstandings, and setbacks. But through perseverance and compassion, Zira proved that curiosity wasn't a betrayal of tradition. It was its natural evolution. By daring to look beyond their boundaries, her people discovered new ways to thrive without losing sight of who they were. One evening, as Zira stood beneath the twin moons, gazing at the constellations above, she felt a profound sense of peace. The stars no longer seemed distant or unreachable. They were part of her story, woven into the fabric of her existence. Behind her, the village buzzed with activity, its people animated by fresh ideas and renewed purpose. Ahead of her lay endless possibilities, waiting to be explored. Captain Vela approached, her glowing form blending seamlessly with the night sky. "You've done remarkable work here," she said warmly. "Your people are lucky to have you." Zira smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you for believing in me. Without you and the Lumen, none of this would have been possible." Vela placed a hand on her shoulder. "This is only the beginning. The universe is vast, and there is still so much to discover. But remember, you will always carry your roots with you, no matter how far you go." Tears pricked Zira's eyes as she nodded. She understood now that her journey wasn't about choosing one path over another. It was about weaving them together, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. Whether among the stars or beneath the glowing trees of Luminara, she was home.